Det är fantastiskt. När man gjort en sak 5 gånger idag ska göra den för sjätte så gör man fel. Det betyder att man är ohjälpligt oförbätterlig. Och hjärtligt välkomna ni som sitter hemma eller vad ni nu sitter och tittar på oss på webben. Härifrån det soliga, fina i Sweden-området i det fina Almedalen. Vi ska prata om mötesindustrin. Hur mötesindustrin kan vara ett powerhouse för innovation, etableringar och talangattraktion. And we're going to speak English all the way through. And if you don't speak English, please ask the person next to you if they can translate later on. But we're doing this because we have a few English-speaking persons who's going to be here up on stage. So, meeting is the meaning of being a human being, and we're going to go through it with a few speakers. And I want you all to come together in a round of applause when I ask Jenny Ökvist Irvin komma upp på scenen. Enter the stage.
Okej, hej och varmt välkomna till East Sweden Stage för besöksnäringen. And I'm gonna turn over to English, just that's what we decided to do. So yes, my name is Jenny Ökvist Irvin, long name. I have always enjoyed traveling, and I rather early decided that I wanted to work in this kind of industry. I got my education up in Östersund, and kind of like to travel and stay longer periods in different places. And I ended up going to Canada and realized I really liked it there. So 6 months turned into 17 years, a long time. I worked in hotels, I worked in resorts, Chamber of Commerce, and at the Convention Bureau over there. And I realized I really, really liked the Convention Bureau business and the versatility that it offered and all the connections that it offered. And then the time came to move to Sweden, perhaps. And there was a job offered at the East Sweden Convention Bureau. So I just had to apply for it. And that was just over 9 years ago. I had only spent one night in the city of Linköping. I had been to Kolmården, but that was about it. But East Sweden, it's a beautiful, beautiful place worth visiting if you haven't already. So I must ask, there's a lot in the audience now that I already know, and they know what I do. But is everyone familiar with the Convention Bureau? Have you worked with the Convention Bureau in the past? No? Okay. So to let you know a little bit, we are a non-for-profit organization. We are now, speaking of East Sweden, owned by 2 municipalities, Linköping and Norrköping. We're funded also by the East Sweden region, Östergötland, as a major partner. But we also have a lot of industry sponsors from our convention centers. Louis De Geer I see here, and we have Linköping Konsert och Kongress are here supporting us as well. Thank you very much. And the majority of the hotels as well are our supporters with funding, and a few PCOs. And why do they support us? Why do we exist? Our main mission is to bring congresses to our municipalities and to the region. And usually they are larger, they take a little bit of time to work home, they're mainly associations that we work with, and they are usually, say, 2, 3, 4 years in advance. They need a bit of hand-holding. There's a lot of other cities who want to have those meetings with them, so you have to bid for the congresses. And we help with that whole process. So what the person who decides to host the meeting has to do is focus on the program. We take care of all the other things, and there's no charge either. The reward that we get is that the meeting comes to us and not to anywhere else. So now this is the East Sweden Convention Bureau, but we're not alone in Sweden. There are 26 convention bureaus in Sweden, so there's a lot of us. And we don't have a representation in Sweden for the meeting industry, something that we wish we had, but because we don't have it, us convention bureaus have formed something that we call the Swedish Network of Convention Bureaus, SNCVB. So go and look into that. And We have formed that in order to help each other, to be industry support and also knowledge sharing. We work a lot with different meetings together and to see what the benefits are, what the trends are out there, how can we get better to be that voice for the industry that we're frankly lacking in Sweden. Yes, we look at, I'm losing myself here. But the reason that I'm standing here today and doing this introduction is very much because we kind of work, most convention bureaus, as a spider in the net. We connect people. We work with the university. We work with municipality. We work with the regions. We work with the industry as well, and it's all a big collaboration. The convention bureau rarely does anything on its own, and we don't work in operations. We do all the work before the actual meeting happens. Then we hand it over to convention bureaus and to the hotels and so on to do the work. But we're always there to kind of be a ball, somewhere to hand the ball to, and voice ideas within thoughts. So we connect with potential meeting hosts and help them bring the meeting to us. And it can be in all different areas. And I think that's why I didn't move the clicker over, but I had that there. The brain is basically that there's so many different industries that we work with. They brings the meeting, and then you do the sharing, and who knows what comes out of that. And that is something that Bruce and Jane are going to talk more about, the actual outcomes of meetings that are more than what just happens then, what happens afterwards. Can we plan better? Can we be strategic about the meetings? That's what this is about. So I assume you're here for a meeting today. You attend other conferences as well. If you're thinking that this was a really good conferences that I attended in the past, I should perhaps bring that to my city. How do I do it? Guess what? Who should you contact? Your local convention bureau. There are 26 of us. So there's probably a one pretty close to you as well. And if you're thinking of organizing a conference that hasn't been organized in the past, you want to start something new, contact your local convention bureau. We're here to help. And spread the word, because there's a lot more people of you that haven't heard a convention bureau. It's not an easy word. It's not a Swedish word, convention bureau. But they're good. We're good friends to have. So with those words, I think I will round it off and welcome Bruce Reeder from Gaining Edge up on stage. We're very, very pleased to have you here.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. It's my first trip to Gotland, and I think this is just, Visby, I think it's just a wonderful place. I've really enjoyed my time. It's been short, but we've walked around, and it's just a fabulous place. I wanted to start my presentation after Jenny's nice introduction by talking just a little bit about myself, introducing myself. You can tell by my accent that I'm actually an American. I grew up in San Francisco, California, where I studied. I went to school at Berkeley, in Berkeley, California, just opposite San Francisco. But I've been in Europe for a long time. I've been in this industry, the meetings and events industry, for many, many years. I started my career at Euro Disney, Disneyland Paris, where I was responsible for everything related to business meetings and events at Disneyland Paris. We all think of Disneyland as the park, Mickey Mouse, and all those sorts of things, but Disneyland in Paris has a huge convention and meetings business, and I was responsible for setting that up back in the day and then running it for a long time. Then I became the CEO of a large convention bureau in France in the city of Lyon, the #2 city in France, and we were able, thanks to the support we got from our local government, turn that into one of Europe's leading convention and meetings destinations. And for the last 12 years, even more than 12 years, I've been working for the company called Gaining Edge, which focuses exclusively on our industry. And we work with destinations, countries, regions, cities all over the world to help them to attract more events to their destinations. We also work with convention venues. We do a lot of training. We do sales representation. We're totally involved in this industry we call the business events industry. Now, to follow up with what Jenny said, I wanted to present to you a little model that you can see on the screen, which will enable you to understand why is it important for a destination to have a strong convention bureau and a strong business events industry, a local business events industry. The reason is that every destination, be it a country, a region, or a city, has identified a certain number of economic priorities. These are the priorities that the destination has decided are going to be the pillars of its future success. They work to do that. They work very closely with the intellectual leaders in the city, people who are involved in research, people who are at the universities, people who are running corporations. They work with them to say, we need to work together to make sure that we can consolidate our efforts to have an economic agenda which is going to succeed in the future. And the two of them, in so doing, look to their convention bureau, their local convention bureau, and they say, we have identified a certain number of economic priorities for our city. We are working together, city and economic and intellectual leaders. We think it would be really important if we could bring events to our destination in those areas that we've identified as our priorities. And if we do that, then we can push forward even in a manner which is even more powerful, our economic agenda. And in this model, as you can see, the goal of the Convention Bureau is not necessarily to bring events to the city so that we can fill up our hotels, fill up our restaurants, get our taxis to take these people places, have people go to the stores and do their shopping for souvenirs and all that kind of thing. We use the hospitality, local hospitality industry as a means to push forward this economic agenda. Now, how does this work? When people come and they have a meeting in a city, or all meetings generally take place in a city, what do? They come and they understand what's going on. They see what's going on in the different areas of economic development that we're looking at. So in those sectors, they say, what's going on? What kind of research is going on? What are there companies that are doing things that are interesting? If they can see the companies and see what they're doing, then they might be interested in investing in it. Or if they see what's going on in research in that destination, in the economic sectors that are priorities, they'll say, wow, maybe we could sign some research protocols and again, join forces and do even more together on this kinds of thing. It's a way that young people in a destination can get access to the intellectual leaders. You can imagine, for example, if there's a city somewhere in Sweden that holds an IT conference and people come from all over the world, for example, from Silicon Valley in California or from London, which is one of the high-tech centers in Europe, they come and they're there for a week talking about high-tech, then the young people working in high-tech in that destination can learn a lot and make contacts which will enable them to move forward. So we think that the business events sector, the meeting sector, is really important for a destination, not because we're bringing things only because we want to fill up our convention centers and our hotels, but because it pushes an economic agenda forward in a manner which is very powerful. But we know that we're living in a changing and in a challenged world. And the business events sector, what we're talking about, is one of the ones that was really affected the most by the recent coronavirus. And coming out of that global pandemic, the meetings industry is searching for a balance between people, profit, the planet. We only have one planet, we all know that, and purpose. Purpose related to its core activity. That core activity is bringing people together. And there are a number of factors that are forcing our meetings industry to challenge a number of ways that we do things. One is climate change. We understand more and more the ecological and the environmental impact of bringing meetings, particularly international meetings, to a destination. The other one is technological advances. The more technology advances, the more we can do things that we used to do in meetings in other manners. We can do them online. Some of the technological advances are changing the formats that meetings have when we actually organize them. And the last thing is a sense of purpose. After the pandemic, where we all held meetings in other formats than actually all coming together, some organizations who organize a lot of meetings are saying, do we really need to continue to organize meetings? Is that really important? The result of that is that organizations that organize meetings, particularly international associations, they need to rethink their business models, particularly the international associations that rely on their annual meeting as their major source of revenue. And destinations, the places that host the events, also need to rethink their business models because they need to provide solutions that enable associations when they have meetings to respond to that question of what is the real purpose of the meeting, all right? What's the purpose? But also they need to propose solutions that provide real collaborative value add to the organization when they choose to come to it. As a result, destination or organizations need to differentiate themselves. They need to find ways where they can continue to show their stakeholders that they're bringing value. If for an association, their membership, they need to show that they're providing value. But at the same time, they need to have funding, and they need to continue to grow their audience. Now, these are challenges that are facing the entire business events ecosystem, not just convention bureaus, not just meeting planners, people who organize meetings, but also people who are corporate sponsors, the people who are partners of research institutes, and government bodies at local, regional, and national levels. And so we talk about this notion of meetings, legacy, and impact because we know that in the future, meetings, when they're organized, need to be able to create ongoing value, long-term value, not only for the association which is organizing them, but also create value for the destination in the long term. And that's what's really important. So you might say, now, what are we talking about? We're talking about legacy, we're talking about impact. What do we actually mean by that? Well, when we talk about legacies, I'm giving you here just a very basic definition. And when we talk about legacy, we're talking about the long-term impact that a meeting can have on society. All right? Now, the impact can be both for their destination, but it can also be for the association which is organizing them. And impacts and legacies, we categorize them in 5 different big areas. One is environmental legacies. The other one is political legacies, political impacts that result from a thing. For example, policy change, which can come out of a political decision made because a meeting was held in a destination. They can be economic legacies, sectoral legacies, and lastly, they can be social legacies. For example, changes in medical care, which resulted in the fact that a meeting was held in a destination about a certain type of medical treatment. And we're going to be talking, Jane, who will be coming up on stage after me, will be explaining a case study which shows how a destination can create a long-term legacy in the area of medical care. Now, all legacies fit into these 5 categories, but they also relate to the 17 the Sustainability Development Goals, which have been identified by the United Nations that you see on the bottom of the slide. There are 17. I won't go into all of those 17 SDGs today, but you can understand that every time we're talking about legacies in these 5 categories, they're all related to the 17 different categories that are included in the social development, the sustainable development groups organized by the United Nations. Now, if you remember the model that I showed you before, and you think about the need we have to harness legacy and to maximize the impacts that an event could have in the destination where it's being held, you can see, once again, the government is identified its economic priorities. It's working with its local professional community, its intellectual leaders. All right, they again turn to the Convention Bureau to get them to bring the event to the destination, but also they say to them, saying, we've identified what our economic priorities are. You, Convention Bureau, you need to go find the events that are in these economic priorities that we've identified in these sectors, which are where we're going to succeed in the future. And in so doing, we will use the event to help us to create impacts, positive impacts in these areas for our local community. So the convention bureaus, not only are they more and more bringing the events to the destination, understanding how those events can help us to create positive impacts, but they're working closer with the local community and local stakeholders to make sure that we understand what kind of impact an event can have in our destination, and in so doing, create long-term impacts which are beneficial to the destination and which create impacts which are sustainable over time. Now, you might be saying, why are we focusing on this? One of the reasons we focus on this is because we want to validate and to understand the value of associations in our civil society. All right? We feel that associations are extremely important in pushing forward and making our societies a better place. We know that international associations are epicenters of knowledge and innovation. Now, you might say that a lot of innovation, a lot of research, a lot of things go on in universities, but it's really the association world which creates the link oftentimes between what's going on in the universities in terms of research or in research centers, what's going on, and how that can be translated into concrete advances, concrete benefits for our local communities, for society as a whole. And it's really the associations that enable us to do that. There are also associations play a role of creating more sustainable economies in our society, and they are what we think is really important, a source of lifelong learning. Most of us go to universities when we're young, and then when we continue our careers, when we continue to go on, we want to continue to learn. And how do we learn once we've left the universities? It's really the association community, which is a source of lifelong learning for all of us. Now, destinations also need to understand why what the impacts can come out of holding events in the different destinations. Now, many destinations are beginning to do that, but what happens today in most destinations is they say, we've identified an event, we've brought it to the city, we think it's going to have a positive impact, let's just wait and see what happens, and we'll try to understand what kind of positive impact that can. That's what's currently going on. But as we move forward, more and more destinations need to understand to say, we're bringing an event to the city, we're bringing an event to our destination. How can we work with that association? How can we work with that organization which is going to coordinate everything that's going to need to be done to make the meeting a success? How can we work with them to make have a positive impact on our society? But in the future, what convention bureaus and destinations are going to need to do, goes back to our model, is to say, we've identified these different economic sectors which are important to us. We know that we want to push forward to have positive impacts that come from those different sectors. It could be IT, it could be the environment, it could be healthcare, it could be a number of things, whatever we want. Engineering, could be anything like that. We want to think those, and so we want to build a strategy that enables us to not only attract events that are in the economic sectors that we've identified, but be able to use those events to create positive impacts, powerful impacts that will change our society for the better, and do that by using the meetings that come to us to do it. Now, that's the future. That's the way it's going to be. That's what we call a powerhouse solution. Okay. Now, the benefits you can see is that it works. The Convention Bureau and the meetings industry works hand in hand with government to reinforce our priorities. Okay. It enables us as a Convention Bureau to target the kinds of events and the subject matter of the events that we want to bring to the destination. We need to. If we're going to get an event, we need to bid for those events. We do to make a proposal, but we will be even stronger in the proposal because we know that the events that we'll try to bring to our destination are working hand in hand with our intellectual leaders to make that event a success when it comes to us. And it enables us to acquire an experience more and more as a destination to say, when events come to us, we can make those even more powerful, more stronger, because they're working hand in hand with our local leaders to create positive impacts, positive legacies, which will move us forward. Now, this creates what we call a virtuous cycle, because when we're, as a convention, as a destination, when we start planning, not just to bring events to the destination, but to maximize the positive impacts that those events have in our destination, it enables us to be even stronger because we're planning for it in advance. We're not just doing it and then saying, we've got the destination, we've got the event coming to our destination, let's sort of see what's going to happen. We're planning for it in advance. So once we start planning for it, then we can start measuring it and understanding how it's changing our society for the better. Okay, that enables us then to prove to the local people, particularly our local sponsors, the value that meetings have for our destinations. Okay. That enables us then to get more and more support from our local industry, because everybody, not only the hospitality industry, which are the traditional partners of the Convention Bureau, but the economic development people, the investment, the foreign direct investment people, all of the people involved in economic development start working hand in hand with the Convention Bureau because they understand the value that they have and the positive impacts that can bring to our destination. So once we do that, we can make better bids, stronger bids. If we make stronger bids, then we're doing better bids, and then we're doing better bids, then we're winning more for the destination. So you can see the circle is a virtual one because we're planning in advance. We're doing better bids, we're doing more bids, and as our bids become better and we're doing more of them, then we can win more and bring more business to the destination. So instead of us just being a convention bureau or a destination that is bringing events because we want to have events to keep our hospitality industry happy, keep our hotels filled up, keep our convention centers filled up, we're really working as a destination on economic and social transformation, which is what we said, which is the key to the model, as we said, that business events helps us to push forward an economic and social transformation agenda. All right? So going forward, convention bureaus and destinations are going to have to create strategies related not just to developing the business event sector, but to developing legacies, developing long-term impacts in a strategic manner. All right. So as we've said before, what that means is that the convention bureaus more and more need to be very close, working hand in hand with economic development agencies in the destination to understand, again, what our strategies are in terms of building economic growth, okay? We need to understand what our community goals are related to those priorities which have been identified by the destination. Then we need to understand what the target sectors are. Once we understand the target sectors, we can get into what the subject matter is within those sectors that we want to focus on. We can start thinking about the economic and legacy deliverables that we want to get out of meetings when they come. You can see there's a list up there of all the different ones. I won't go into them, but you can see there are things like capacity building, training, talent acquisition, increased exports, increased sales and marketing activities, getting more startups, getting more students involved in all kinds of different things. There are a whole bunch of deliverables that we can identify. But once we do that, then we can identify the legacy goals for the destination. What do we want to achieve in terms of, again, long-term impacts? So we can understand which sectors we want to target and which accounts we want to focus on. Accounts meaning which associations in the different sectors we want to approach, we want to get to know well, because we want them to come and hold their meetings in our destination, because we know that if they do that, then that will have a positive impact, a positive legacy, which will become something long-term, which will change our society for the better over time, okay? Then once we do that, we can create support programs for our legacy efforts, for our long-term efforts. And finally, we can develop measurement and reporting systems which would then enable us to show, again, our government supporters that we are really working hand in hand. So the destinations of the future are the ones that are not only going to be focusing on bringing more events to their destinations in the key economic sectors, but they're going to be the ones who have understood the importance of identifying what we can do in terms of creating long-term impacts and legacies that come out of those meetings, so that we can use those events that come to us to make positive change in economic and social areas over the long term. And that's the future of our business events industries, and that's the future of convention bureaus, we think, moving forward in this sector, which we call the business events sector. So that's the model that I wanted to share with you today. And with that, I'm going to let Jane Cunningham come to the stage to give you a couple of case studies to show you how this can work in the real world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hej och välkomna. Tack att ni är här inne i rummet eller online. Jag heter Jane Cunningham. Jag pratar inte så bra svenska, så jag pratar engelska idag. Men jag är så glad att vara här i Almedalen. Och jag gifte mig på Gotland, så det är jättetrevligt att bli tillbaka. I have been working in the business events industry for quite a long time. A bit like Jenny, I was inspired through travel. I have worked at a convention center. I've worked for a PCO, a professional conference organizer. I've worked at some large hotels in different destinations. I worked with Gaining Edge for a number of years. I worked for an alliance of Convention Bureau. And now I'm very glad to be working with Destinations International, which is an association of destinations around the world. A community where people can learn from each other, share what they've done well, share what they've perhaps not done so well. But today I'm very happy to be here to have another hat on as well, because I work with the Iceberg. The Iceberg is a platform where people share amazing stories of impact. Everything Bruce has talked about, you can see them be brought to life through video and through case studies. The thing about the Iceberg is, and most people still believe that meetings, because they are often measured by how many delegates, how many room nights, how many cups of coffee. And we actually see this as more of the consumption economy. Not saying that that is bad for our communities, because it supports so many jobs. It supports small businesses. It supports large venues. But also we know that that actually is the tip of the iceberg. And now that we are all extremely aware of the UN SDGs, we want to make sure that people traveling around to conferences, there is a footprint. So we also need to look at mitigation, but even more importantly, that's why what lies below the tip of the iceberg is the conversations we're now talking about. Almedalen is a perfect example of that. Could everything that happens over these few days be done online? Unlikely. You may start conversations, but it's meeting in person. It's the serendipitous meetings that you didn't expect to have. And I'm sure you've had many of those. But what Bruce is talking about is how can we intentionally plan these interactions and plan a longer term impact. And you can see here the impact can be social, it can be economic, it can be environment, it can go across the three. But it's very hard to measure something if you've not had intention at the start, if you've not had conversations around what does success look like. Success may be in Norrköping, we want to have 500 scientists in this area because this is a stronghold. However, if you look longer, you may say that's an outcome. Having those 500 scientists, what's that going to change? How are the people living in this destination going to benefit from that? And I'm going to touch on that a little bit. So we talk about the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, and everything that lies beneath. And I just want to share a case study through a video, because I thought that might also go down well. It's about the European Society for Radiotherapy and Oncology. And with this association, they found out there was a gap. And this is what we often talk about. What is the destination missing, and how can a conference coming to that destination bridge that gap, reduce that gap, really make a difference. And this is more impactful, and this is more exciting. For some of us who have been working with the convention world for a long time, we're not so much rates, dates, and space. It's like, what do you want? What do you want to achieve, and how can our destination be the best destination for it to really make a difference? So you can see with this association that they focus very much around health and civil society, which is goal number 3. So already it's easy to use the SDGs to say it's goal 3. And they're wanting to reduce the burden on society. So there should be a short video that just comes up now around how they are wanting to create health for all. I think you will hear someone.
We, from the start, decided to have a dual RFP, a double RFP. We had the functional part of the RFP, but we also had an engagement part of it.
When we got the bid for Estro, we saw that 40% was infrastructure and the usual things, and 60% of the importance of the bid that the city had to propose was a legacy project. And in Spain, what Estro identified is that there was a lack of information about this kind of therapy. So this was the umbrella. We had to increase the awareness of radiotherapy as a way of treating cancer. And we got a great partner, Dr. Natalia Carballo. And one part of the legacy of Estro in Madrid was a website. So the tangible legacy was a website which is called Info Radioterapia. It's a Spanish website which provides information to patients, to scientists, to physicians, to families of people with cancer about what radiotherapical oncology means, the ways of treating cancer, because there was no source of information before that.
We therefore thought that it would be wiser to focus, especially in COVID times, on the patient outreach activities. And we learned during the process that information, that communication led also to the decision by private-public partnership in Spain to raise a very large budget. The indication is about 700 million euros to equip the areas of the country that were not sufficiently equipped. That is something that goes beyond our wildest dreams when we started the process. And it's important to think that maybe it happened also because of the process that we started.
So by creating this dialogue, by them understanding what are we missing in Spain or in Madrid, and to create these conversations and the Convention Bureau connecting everybody, they then managed to get 700 million support. And you can see from this, they are going to save 250,000 lives will be saved over the shelf life of the equipment that they now managed to put in Spain because of this meeting. And in the past, that meeting may have just come. Everybody have joined, everybody's in the room talking about all those things Estro related, but now it's connecting outside of the conference walls, and that's what's really exciting. I was hugely proud to work on a project with Norrköping and supported by Tillväxt on live events as a catalyst for social sustainability and place development. There is a report which you can read if you're interested, but we focused on the vision. So I was talking about the vision of Estro and what they want to achieve, and we talked about the vision of Norrköping and how can events help with that vision? How can events grow your university, grow the population, make young people have faith in the future and living in Norrköping? And it was a wonderful project because not only did we look out to the likes of Gaining Edge, who were working with Sarawak and a number of destinations, what are other destinations doing? What's the sporting world doing? How are they measuring impact? What does that look like for Norrköping? We then connected with industry partners. There were some people in the room that were on a Zoom call with me to really understand, do you understand legacy? How can we work together? How can we work together differently? And through this whole process, we realized that live events absolutely are key to quality of life and economic growth driver for Norrköping. So we also wanted to focus on the right events. So similarly to what Bruce was talking about, we created this regenerative cycle because events keep giving. There was a great study that was done in Copenhagen, and they found that 40% of the international researchers in the universities had come and moved to Copenhagen after attending a conference. So there's some things you can't measure, but when you see studies like that, putting your destination on the map, that's really important. So we very much aligned what's the vision of Norrköping and how can we have a vision and attract the same conferences, the conferences that are going to help us with our vision. So focus on Norrköping vision, establish legacy goals, what's already being measured. How can we then define some event legacy goals? How can we then identify the events and then monitor, validate and communicate? Because I don't think people understand that when lots of people come into your city for a conference, there's so much more to that. Not only are they supporting the local economy and the jobs, but there's other things happening. Hospitals could be improving because of those conferences. Jobs could be created. There's wonderful case studies in the report we did around how can a specific place have a strength and then build on that. People move there, open businesses. So that's a really exciting point. And then we looked at some legacy goals. This is getting into a little bit too much detail, but we looked at a few legacy goals to say, how can we get the right events that align with that? So for example, talent, attraction and retention. How can we really market around the intellectual capital, the strongholds in the city, bring events on those strongholds, and then hopefully people will want to move there or stay there because it's a growing industry. Every destination is fighting for talent, fighting for investment. So how do you make sure that you do it right and specifically with a legacy strategy? Local business growth. Really connect the local hosts. Like you heard with Estro, they worked with a doctor, a champion, that was keen to bring that conference and win that bid. And then when we're strengthening the local community, and you know, Norrköping really is a powerhouse in that respect because you are targeting the right events and you are looking at what cultural events do we need in certain areas of the city maybe that also can really help when it comes to placemaking, which we'll hear a little bit more about. And lastly, I just want to say that with Destinations International, we're all about really the power of the Convention Bureau or the destination organisation, and that is seriously important for the destination, everything that we do. So the last line, we believe that the work of a destination organisation is for the benefit and well-being of every person in the community. And destination organisations should be about creating that space of welcoming and belonging, whether it be creating spaces for everybody that lives in your community, that they have a wonderful experience, or for the visitors that are coming in for that short length of time or however long they're coming. I think I have actually managed to speak slightly under time, but I would like to thank you so much for listening. Tack så jättemycket. Och jag hand over to Karin.
Thank you, Jane. Wow, it's hot in here, isn't it? I feel a bit... if I faint, will you pick me up? Well, I mean, there's so much going on within the meeting industry today, I think. My name is Karin Mentemäki, and I am the Market Development Manager, Director at Visit Stockholm, which is the official destination management organization for Stockholm, completely owned by the city of Stockholm. My career in the meeting industry is long, over 30 years. I started at a venue in Stockholm, Stockholmsmässan, where I grew up, basically. I started as a congress hostess and ended up being the congress director. And now I'm at Visit Stockholm since 9 years back. Working not only with meetings, but with the whole spectra of meeting, events, leisure, tourism, everything. But my heart, somehow, well, it's the meeting industry that I sort of know from the beginning. I'm just going to mention a few things that we're doing in Stockholm, just to give some concrete examples of what's being done. And I think we're not the only one doing this, but in Sweden, Stockholm is the largest city, so it's a big city to grasp. We have we have 18 institutions for higher education, Of course, the ones bringing the most meetings to Stockholm is like Karolinska Institute and KTH and Stockholm University. But there are so many others. And we've been handling meetings coming to Stockholm. And we know they bring good things to the city without us doing anything. They bring talents, they bring bright minds to Stockholm. We know that people get together and innovate. But we felt that we needed to do something more about this, also because we're just like 2-3 people in the office working with this. So we can't do everything ourselves. So during the pandemic, we had the opportunity also to do a project financed by Tillväxtverket. Just like Norrköping, it's not completely different from what you did in Norrköping. But we got this money and the project that we started to gather all the stakeholders from the academia, from the city, I mean different parts of the city, like the director of innovation and people that can really open doors for us and for the academia. And also with the local business, as we have a strong business sector in Stockholm within tech sector, within life science, and we wanted to bring all these parties around the table and really discuss what meetings, or what are the challenges in your organizations? What do you need? What can you do? And how can we make this happen? And what meetings do we want to bring to Stockholm to change something? To maybe it's something that we're not so strong within, that we want to focus on and get help to change, or it's something that we want to position and bring out to the world that we are a strong leader within a certain sector. So we're taking baby steps. This is taking a long time because there's so many people that needs to be involved. But just by bringing people together, it started the process. And nowadays, when we get an inquiry from an association that they want to come to Stockholm, we immediately bring people to the table and they have a chance to be involved. Even if it's a life science meeting, we bring the IT sector in, so we can sort of really see how we can find different ways of making benefits of this particular meeting. So I'm really happy that Bruce talked about this, that it's not all about bringing a number of meetings to your destination. It's like bringing the right meetings to your destinations, and that will bring other meetings as well. And we want to be a part that make it happen, but we really need the academia to be the driving force, because they need to want to have the meetings, because it's their networks, it's their science. We can be a part. We often say that we stimulate, moderate, and facilitate, and that's being the spider in the web, making things happen. We also drew parallels to what we've been doing with major public events. I don't know how many here are involved in sort of more, sporting events or big festivals, but they have a longer tradition working with legacy and finding the right events for your destination in order to make a change. I'm forgetting to move my... Luckily, I don't have that much information on my pictures. For the public events, I have it's 2 examples, but it's within the same field. We had in 2020, we had the European Championship of Handball, and this year we had the World Championship of Handball. And as an example, when we invest in a public event, we want them also to bring something back to the community. It's like we, of course, are a part of it, thinking what does the city need, but they need to be involved and make it happen. So in 2020, we have identified that in the suburbs of Stockholm, there are loads of young people that don't have that community, they don't do sports, they don't do anything special in their spare time. And by bringing this project out in the suburbs, we created Hand the Ball, where the Swedish Association of Handball were involved in getting all these young people involved in handball some of these children are maybe not allowed to go to an evening activity. So they brought the activity to school during school hours where they could be involved and sort of meet new friends, learn the way we do it, the way of making something stronger, being a part of something else than just school. Thousands of young people were involved in this project. It was really a success. And now when we had the handball coming back to Stockholm in 2023, this January, the project was that we also identified the lack of young leaders within the handball community, the ones that actually can teach other young people how to do it. So then the legacy project was it's still going on, a leadership program for young people to become leaders. And it's not only within handball, it's like, you know, a management course to really become someone to learn other people how to play a game or do something else. So this has been 2 really successful events, and I think we can do so much more like that when it comes to meetings as well. Just bring people around the table, discuss what are the challenges in your destinations, and you will find also other people willing to invest in that particular thing because of you make it a sort of a subject for more people to be involved in. So I think what we're seeing now is that meetings and public events are sort of getting closer to each other the way we work. And also I think this is a really good thing because I think many people understand public events because it's sort of you see them in the streets and you understand the thing they bring. But it's exactly the same thing with meetings. It's just like meetings have been more hidden. It's something happening in a conference center. And we need to bring them out to people to understand what they can gain from bringing that meeting to the destination. That's all from me.
Yeah, more or
the
less,
last one.
Karin, more or less.
More or less. Shall I stay or should I go?
We can't leave you you can't leave the stage without answering the $1 million question. It's so for that we have something which is huge in Sweden. We call it Melodifestivalen, and then you go further on to Eurovision Song Contest. And since Sweden won this year, I know that Stockholm are applying to get it. There's a bid going on in Sweden who will organize the Eurovision Song Contest 2024. Is Stockholm up in that race? You're among friends, you.
Yes, we're one of the ones that are in the race, but honestly, I don't know.
No.
Because there are several really good destinations in this country that can do a wonderful Eurovision, I'm sure. So.
But we want it. You want it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great to know. Thank you.
It's a crazy event, though. It's short time. It's huge. It takes a lot of resources, but it's great.
And it's like we were like 11 months away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, would be nice to have an arena.
So whoever gets it, they have work to do. We did it in 2016. So I think that's one thing we're really good with in Sweden, to share information. So whoever wins will have a lot of support from other destinations that have hosted it already.
And it's like 6 or 8 weeks of rehearsals and people coming in from all over Europe.
Yeah.
It's a huge event.
It's huge. Yeah.
Good luck in that bid.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Now you're free to leave. Thank you very much, Karin. Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you very much, Jane. And we're preparing for an after work that will start out here like 5 o'clock. So we will just wrap it up here and we do it in Swedish. Du var så duktig på att tala om att man skulle höra av sig till er, så ta den informationen en gång till fast på svenska igen, så att alla med säkerhet kommer att gå hem med den i hjärtat.
Ja, men då kör vi igen då, från början.
Ja, verkligen.
Ja, men visst är det varit roligt att lyssna på det här inspirerande. Jag är så otroligt lycklig att ha er här. You have no idea what I'm saying. I'm
She said she's very happy that you've been here.
Yeah, I'm extremely happy, and I find it very inspiring as well. And I alla fall, för att ta över till svenskan då. Men conventionbyråer som sagt. Jag hoppas att ni har hört det här ordet. Nu har ni gjort flera gånger här och fått till er att wow, det här med möten är ju någonting som är värt att ta till sig. Så att kontakta som sagt er lokala conventionbyrå. Det finns 26 stycken runt i landet. Från Luleå i norr till Malmö i söder. Alla jobbar med, kostar ingenting att ta hjälp ifrån. Utan lyft bara telefonen, skriv ett mejl, ta ett möte och se vad man kan skapa för någonting tillsammans. Det är en fantastisk källa. Ja.
Det var exakt vad vi ville höra.
Vad bra. Tack så mycket för att ni kom allihopa. Jätteroligt att ha er här och tack online.
Och det säger jag också tack så jättemycket för idag. Det har varit trevligt att vara här på Sweden. Almedalen finns där, men som sagt det blir lite mingel och mys här vid 5-tiden. Och Sweden köper 5000 vattenreningstabletter. För istället som en gest för att vi har haft så många gäster som har varit här. Så genom att vara här och lyssna har ni också gjort skillnad. Det är av UNICEF man köper dem. Så tack så jättemycket härifrån scenen och ha fortsatt trevlig tid i Almedalen. Det är sommar så det är bara till att njuta. Tack så mycket.
Tack.